I don't want to scare anybody. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Simply Steve, dude. What? I also heard that they've been plugging in like USB devices at USAID, and they tried to get access to a skiff, dude. Like, you can be shot and killed for trying to gain access to a skiff. That's wild. Wild. I love how the right used to be like the Constitution says and the three branches of government, smaller government, and now it's just like give the key to the billionaires and trust me, bro. Like it doesn't even make any fucking sense. I can't make it make sense. Plus, they're artificially causing a drought this summer in Southern California. That's awesome. You know, potato, potato.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, we kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. Our brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is
Yeah, I've got a concept of America for you. That makes sense. I don't know, dude. Like, look, I know a lot of people that are going to see this video don't know me, never will know me, never will watch this show more than the 5 minutes that I piss you off. But I grew up in like, we'll talk about it in a second when I start the show. Thank you, Simply Steve.
Kill it anyway to play. Haters face the world's mistakes. Wake the back in the pack, kill it anyway.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Will Bird. This is the Cold Beer Confessional. Thank you for joining us. So what I was saying before was like, I'm in a super, super small town in Tennessee. I grew up like super Republican. Both my parents outspoken Republican, even though they didn't really vote that much. My dad always wore like a Make America Great Again hat. I campaigned for Trump the first time. I worked at phone banks for Trump, like voted for Trump, voted in the primaries for Trump. And it's not just that like Trump's changed and I'm still like super conservative. I think just by doing the research and checking all these lies and fact checking just where I have the show drove me more to like a liberal side. But even if I still had those same beliefs, just because they're like what was ingrained in me, right? What I grew up believing, and I never really challenged those beliefs. But even if I had those same beliefs, he's gone too far now, right? Like just taking his billionaire friend and being like, here you go. You can have the Department of Treasury. Oh, none of your guys have security clearances? Just fire everybody that tells you don't have a security clearance. Like, what the fuck? What is going on? And I was talking to somebody that I actually served with on TikTok today, and he was like, I made a TikTok and I said, I voted for a system of checks and balances where there's three branches of government. They check each other. They keep each other in balance. I don't even like a supermajority. I think our government's set up to work where there's like an opposing side with a little bit of power, right? So like nothing gets off the rails too far either way, right? But whatever. And I was like, you guys can't even argue with me because you voted for an authoritarian and his wealthy friends and just said, trust me, bro. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, he's doing some wild shit. Even my dad, towards the end of his life, would be like, did you see, like, what the crazy stuff Trump said? Is it real? Is it true? Would even ask me, and I'd be like, no, it's not true. Thank God he never got. My mom and dad were, like, prime targets for the QAnon shit. But luckily, they asked me all the time, like, hey, I saw this. Is any of that going on? Or, hey, I heard this. Is that really true? And I would break it down for them and be like, no, this isn't true. There's like a lot of bullshit around it and a lot of evidence. If you just take it like, oh, this is a news site, they're not going to publish something that's not true. You would believe that shit. But yeah, I went through a lot of phases and my beliefs have been kind of changing, mostly because I see how well people do with a head start, and most people don't have a head start, and it's even worse depending on what your skin color is. The system's set up a lot of times for people to fail, while the people that have already succeeded just continue to succeed. But even if I had those old beliefs, like the guy I served with, he was like, what was the alternative to vote for? Like, I picked the lesser of two evils. And I was like, the lesser of two evils? What are you talking about? The one guy is dismantling our country with his friends who all have government contracts and are becoming bigger billionaires. And he was like, yeah, but I just didn't want more of the same. And I was like, nobody wants more of the same. Nobody was saying, give me exactly what happened for the last 4 years. But Jesus fucking Christ. Like, they're tearing down institutions. They're fucking just doing wild shit and outright lying to the American people. Like, oh, this plane crash happened from DEI. Well, what happened exactly in the plane crash? We have no idea. So how do you know it was DEI? Because I have common sense. A reporter called out Trump on the FAA article that he read about where they were hiring people with severe mental disabilities. And it's like, hey, this has been standing policy and on the website since at least 2013. That means it was in the Obama administration. It was there for all of your administration. And it was there for Biden's administration. But you said we changed it and then Biden changed it. Why did you say that? And he's like, oh, we did change it. Next question. And the guy's like, wait. And he's like, nope, no more from you. He just outright lies to him. I wonder if I don't remember where I saw that clip from. Was that in Mod Chat? Where was that clip at? We'll find it right quick. And he's just like, nope, no more from you. We're done. Hold on. Trump. I hate how it does that. Trump called out FAA 2013. The reporter's like, no. That's the not a very smart question. I have common sense. That's not a very smart question from you. FAA's DEI program was Trump's all along. That's true. It's been there since 2013, but I wanted the guy that actually said something to him. Here it is. Maybe. What the fuck is this? Okay.
I want to ask you about the ice skaters in a moment because the U.S. ice skating community was affected. But first, if I can, the cited FAA text that you read is real.
The cited FAA text that you read is real. And there was an article on it from Fox News that said FAA is hiring people with these mental disabilities and shit. Obviously not for air traffic controllers, right? The same way that the McDonald's hires people with mental disabilities, not to run the fucking country or run the company, obviously. But the stuff you said is real.
But the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's website.
All right. So the implication that Biden put this in place or changed something that you had put in place is just not true. It's been on, or Pete Buttigieg, it's been on the website since 2013. You can take the Wayback Machine, and that's the earliest you can pick it up. 2013. So clearly Trump, he may not have liked these policies. I would honestly say he didn't even know these policies existed until that news story came out recently, like a couple of weeks ago. And just because he saw the headline, he thought, oh, Biden just changed these policies. But actually, they've been on the books since 2013. So they were there his entire administration. He didn't put them there, but he damn sure didn't change them. And that's not true. Now let's see how he responds. Who said that? You said that?
On the FAA's website. No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration too. So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
I did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then
he's just outright lying to the American people, to the press, behind the podium. Like, I understand for people that watch him all the time, you're like, oh, he's always lying. Yeah, we know that. But for the people that this is something simple to check, did Trump change FAA hiring policy? And I'm not saying this is a big deal. I'm not saying this would make you not support him, but just check this. Just check this. That's all you have to do. How long has it been on the FAA's website? How long has this been their policy? Because if he's lying about something so fucking stupid, he's probably lying about more shit. What really happened is he read an article that he thought he could use to his advantage. Fox News put it out 2 weeks before he's inaugurated or whatever. And he said, oh, Biden must have recently done that. He didn't even read the story. He just read the headline. Then the reporter tries to come back to him. He's like, no,
You changed the policy during your first
I
administration.
did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in, and he changed it. And then when I came in 2 days, 3 days ago, I signed a new order, bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It's on the website.
Please.
Oh, we don't get the no. The guy kind of again speaks over the press that he points to at the next question. He's like, no, that's it. And his executive order that he's talking about recently changing it is just dumb, right? It just says, end all DEI. We got to have excellence in the workplace, kind of. It doesn't actually implement any policies like this. It asks other people to implement policies, but it doesn't actually implement any policies. All right, I want to see this. I just saw it pop up. It says, huge update. NTSB reveals the tragic details of the D.C. mid-air collision after listening to the plane's CVR. Now, on the Philly plane crash, I don't know. I think one of two things happened, if I had to guess. They were still ascending. Have you guys ever seen a string stall test? So this is a plane's wing, okay? I've shown it on the stream before. I don't know if you guys watched it, but I've shown it on the stream before. A plane wing creates lift, okay? And it only creates lift because it's got a little bit of angle, right? And it's putting all this high pressure air under the wing and pushing it down. And it makes a pocket of low pressure air up here that flows over the wing. Okay, that's how it creates lift. That's why in a helicopter, when you're flying forward, you can do this, right? You can go nose down and you'll fly faster. In an airplane, they're almost always a little bit nose up because they need to force air under the wings, high pressure, and have low pressure over the wings. And air has to be traveling over the wings to create lift. When you have a stall is when you don't have enough forward momentum to create the lift needed to keep the plane in the air. When you have a stall, what happens is you have the wing, something happens. You lose power, you're too high of an angle, something happens, and the air that was going under the wing is still going under the wing. The air that's on top of the wing changes direction. It's no longer going over and over and over. It changes and comes back, and you're not creating lift anymore because you don't have that low pressure above the wing. So this is what it looks like if you take a bunch of strings, yarn, and put it on the wing while you're flying. All these strings are taped at the front or secured at the front somehow, and the wind is holding them straight and back. Okay, the low pressure wind going over the wing is holding them straight and back. Now, when he hits a stall, you can just watch what happens to the strings. So he's putting it in a stall intentionally. Feel it coming off the throttle. Now watch the strings. See how they're all changing directions? And the nose drops. Now, when you're flying along, right, where your nose up, you're flying along, and you have a stall, usually one wing will stall before the other because they're not perfectly balanced. That wing and the nose will drop. Now, if you're at 60,000 feet or 10,000 feet or whatever, when the nose drops and you're coming back down, you're going to pick up speed. Okay? And because you're picking up speed, the wing will start working again. Right? You either had an angle problem, you were too high angled, that's fixed by the nose dropping, or you were too slow. That's fixed by the nose dropping, right? And the air's going the right way over the wing. So when you stall, there's procedures. Usually it'll like bow to the left, bow to the right a little bit because one wing stalled first. And you're going to go down as long as you keep it out of like a flat spin. You have room to pick up speed and get back into it, right? You made a mistake, but you can easily save it. So when he starts going nose down, the strings start straightening out again. Now he's trying to stall it again. You can hear the engine powering back, and the nose is coming up. He's trying to stall it. There's all the strings change direction, and the nose drops down, and it comes out of a stall. They're probably practicing. That's one thing you have to do to get your pilot's license, is practice recovering from a stall. So, Steve, all the strings change. The strings, if you have lift, right? If your airplane is flying, if it's planing, okay, all that should go over the wing. And there's a bunch of different things you can add to it. But, like we watch the Kit Fox. Like the Kit Fox has a slatted wings, all kinds of shit, right? To make the stall speed even slower, so they can land slower or take off faster for short takeoffs and landings. This is what happened. Now, the Learjet in Philly, it seems like they can very easily run with one engine. Okay, the Learjet has it's a Learjet 55. It has two engines. They're fuselage mounted towards the rear, towards the tail of the plane. It seems like, from what I can find online, I've never flown the plane, it can easily run on one engine. But its performance is cut way down. So I think one of two things happen. If you watch the radar, they are gaining altitude, right? They're coming up the hill, and then it just nose over and starts diving. And it noses over to its right, I think. I can't remember if it's left or right, but it noses over to one side, almost like it's a stall. So I think one of two things probably happened. So let's say they had both engines, and they're climbing pretty aggressively, okay? Both engines are working. They're climbing pretty aggressively. I could be wrong. We'll wait for the thing to come out and everybody can tell me. They're climbing aggressively, going up in altitude with both engines, producing enough thrust to climb high enough to get to where they're supposed to be, whatever their altitude is. And very unlikely they lose both engines, right? That'd be kind of a weird thing. Usually they have like redundant systems, so they could still have one, but they could have lost both engines. If they'd have lost both engines, it's just a matter of time. Unless they start diving and picking up speed, it's going to stall out, and it's probably going to stall out over to one side. The other scenario could be they lost one engine. So one engine flamed out, bird strike something, right? They lost one engine, and instead of backing out of how aggressively they were trying to climb in altitude, they were still on the same path as if they had the performance of two engines and stalled it that way. It does look like a stall from the radio or from the radar. That would also explain, sort of, why they came down like a fucking rocket. Because they don't have a margin of error, right? They weren't 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 feet in the air. They had just taken off. They hadn't even got to their cruising altitude. So what the pilot has to do when you stall is basically get speed. Get speed back up, right? The only other thing I could imagine, short of like a weird like human error, like a suicidal pilot, it's like, fuck it, my wife left me, I'm killing everybody, is that somehow their controls got locked in a position that just made them dive straight down. Like, were the controls maxed out, something went wrong with the hydraulic system and maxed it out to one side, and just got stuck there. Neither one of them could overcome the hydraulic system or a manual system or something. But it makes sense that they would have been trying to gather speed, right? They have to get enough speed to produce lift back on the wings, and you get speed if there's something wrong with your engines. You get speed by falling out of the sky nose down. So I don't know. It's a very weird situation. The angle they're coming in at is very, very steep. I mean, it looks like a missile strike. It's a very steep angle. They had just taken off. They're completely able to fly with one engine. What are the chances of them losing both engines? Seems strange, right? And these engines is like you have to keep, you know how you do like vehicle maintenance on your car? That's nothing like airline maintenance, right? There's so many hours you have to rebuild this, and so many hours after that it has to have a full inspection, and so many hours you got to tear out all the hot gas path, and then so many hours you got to do a major, and then so many hours you got to do a minor. Like, there's so many things to do with it. That's another thing, I guess. If the plane was intact, the other thing that I can't account for is if for some reason the airframe broke in half. If the airframe broke in half, who knows why? Who knows what happened, right? If they had an explosion on board or something like that, I think I would want to say like people would report a fireball and explosion or something. But as long as the airframe was intact, it looks like they just stalled it out. But I don't know. We'll see when more information comes out. That's my guess. I'm not an expert. I'm a weird aviation nerd, but I'm not an expert by any means. But we'll see when the report comes out. Now, this is on the DC one. This is not Philly. This is the DC mid-air collision. Yeah, like people think they get their pilot's license and they'll buy a plane. You don't understand how, like even a small plane, you have to have hangar and storage and maintenance. It costs sometimes thousands of dollars or hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour to fly, hundreds of dollars an hour to store, just because hours are still adding up. There's still time thing. It's crazy, the expense that goes into maintaining, even though everybody's like, it's a 40-year-old Learjet. Yeah, that's probably even worse, because a lot of stuff that isn't going wrong on a 10-year-old Learjet is now coming up, and maintenance, and that's probably even more expensive to maintain that. And if their records have to be good, or they won't be allowed to fly. Like, you can't just go out there and be like, oh, my engines haven't been inspected in 20 years, but I'm just going to take her around the block, right? JP is really clean diesel. Yeah. When I was in the military, everything was JP, right? Jet propulsion fuel, and they have different levels of it. Even the diesel pickup trucks run on the same thing that fucking helicopters run on, that the dirt bikes run on, that everything runs on.
Let me just start with, when we began our first press conference, I guess 2 or 3 days ago, we gave the condolences to the families of the 67 victims in this accident. And tonight, we also need to give the condolences to yet another set of individuals due to the Philadelphia crash. Our hearts go out to all of them. Nobody should suffer this much tragedy, no matter what time frame in between it. But know this, we will find out what happened in both of those accidents. We will make recommendations, and we will attempt to never have to deal with those type of accidents again. I want to give you just a couple of facts right off the bat, just in case there's any questions. Last year, the NTSB investigated across all modes.
Oh, one thing I did hear, I haven't watched it, but they said that that Phil covered it, and he's like, don't you guys wonder, this is all a setup. The Black Hawk was a remote control. Don't immediately rule that out, like, in general, because there was a demonstration that Lockheed Martin did this year with them running a Black Hawk from a tablet from, like, Las Vegas, and it was in Virginia or some shit. Obviously, I don't think that's what happened in this crash, but you can remote operate Black Hawks. Now, apparently, they're developing technology for it. But one of Phil's arguments was, why weren't there hardly any people on this big-ass jet? This isn't a big-ass jet. It's a regional jet. Like, I live in Podunk, and regional jets, like a Canadian regional jet 700, land at my airport. And my airport's like fucking tiny as shit, right? This isn't a big-ass jet. I think the max passengers is less than 80 on a CRJ 700. So having 64 people on it, pretty average, right? Like 64 people on a regional jet that maximum, depending on how it's laid out and the bathrooms and stuff, maximum can hold 80. A lot of configurations are going to be like 60, 70, 80. Like it's not this huge jet that only had figure skaters on it. I don't know. It only, the maximum it could hold is like 80.
1,288 different events.
It's made by, if you want to look it up, it's a Bombardier. You know, they make four-wheelers and shit, too. They make the CRJ 700.
Aviation accounted for 1,204 of those. We currently have open 1,145 investigations in aviation. Last year, we had multiple accidents with 6 or more fatalities. Across all of our modes, which are primarily aviation, we dealt with 343 fatalities. We currently have open 1,100 recommendations, and in aviation, there are 283 that are still pending. The team that is working on this crash at DCA collectively has over 350 years of seniority with the NTSB. We will find out what happened, and we will.
The way the ones that I've flown on are usually set up is either like 2x2 rows all the way back, right? Or if they have a business class, they don't have a first class, but if they have a business class, the first 6, maybe 8 seats will be 1 on this side and 2 on this side, and the aisle will be offset. So all of those 6 or 8 or 10 seats or whatever they are up front will all be business class because they've all got they eliminated a seat out there, so they all got a little more room. And then in the back it'll be 2x2 with a hall down the middle.
We'll do everything we can to prevent it. I don't want anyone to think because we are working 2 accidents. This is what we do. Week in and week out. Just today, a lot more people are paying attention to it. We're taking an opportunity to introduce Bryce Banning. He hasn't really spoken the last couple of times, but he's been working hard, putting together a lot of information. Bryce joined the NTSB in 2012 as a senior aircraft investigator. He's been the investigator in charge on hundreds of aircraft investigations.
Jet skis, yeah, they make jet skis.
With commercial privileges for single-engine land and sea, certified flight instructor, multi-engine instructor, and instrument instructor.
That's what I heard. I haven't seen the show, but I heard one of his arguments was, you don't wonder why there's only 60-some people on this big-ass jet, or whatever he said.
Also a certified airframe and power.
And he also, his fans are claiming that the Black Hawk was remote controlled. I don't know if he claimed that. I think that's what I saw, but.
Mechanic. Bryce has accumulated over 8,000 hours of flight time in all types of aircraft, ranging from Pipers to Navajos, King Airs, and Lear.
People are also saying that the pilots didn't have a whole lot of hours. Now, in the civilian world, especially for rotary wing, right, helicopters, 500 hours on the platform and 1,000 hours on the platform is not a lot. But in the military world, because of the price and the cost, and if you're not overseas doing it, you're just at home training, that's a decent amount of hours, right? 500 hours for the co-pilot, 1,000 hours for the commanding pilot. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, people in the civilian world would be like, I don't even think you're safe. I wouldn't even let anybody go and fly with 500 hours. Yeah, but so the military tries to offset a lot of theirs in simulators and training and a bunch of classwork because I agree. Military pilots need more hours, but you're probably not going to find one. Like, if you had somebody that had been flying as long as they have, let's say they've been flying for a few years, you're probably not going to see them with like 2,000 hours, right? Because it's just, they don't get as many hours as they should. They try to offset it with classroom and simulators, like I said, but it's not the same as the civilian world, where somebody's footing the bill. They don't care how much it is. You get a chance to fly a lot.
He served in multiple management positions for multiple airlines, and he's been leading this team since the inception. He's going to brief you on some details that we have, and then we'll come back with some additional details.
Thank you. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder from the PSA aircraft were recovered on Thursday in the late afternoon by the FBI dive team. The CVR and the FDR were provided to engineers at the NTSB Vehicle Recorders Division immediately after recovery. Both the FDR and the CVR were a L3 Harris Communications FA 2100 type. Both recorders are solid-state memory digital recorders. Both the CVR...
That's good, right, because even with some water inclusion, they should be able to recover the data. That is the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder.
And the FDR were downloaded successfully.
There you go.
The FDR contains about 400 parameters and is currently being analyzed by a FDR working group consisting of the NTSB, FAA, and PSA. The CVR contained about 2 hours.
One more thing to remember is we talked about the theory that the Black Hawk probably So the Black Hawk was moving at a pretty good clip. I've seen people estimate it using like ground tracking and what they thought the approach speed was of the jet. I've seen that, and the Black Hawk was moving at a pretty good clip. So if we have like 120 knots, I think is what the one guy estimated. If we have, all right, so we got 500 up here and the ground down here, 100, 200. These are altitudes, 400, 500. Okay, so the plane is on a glide path from, let's say, it wasn't 500, but let's say it's coming from 400 to 300, okay? This is where the plane was coming in to land. We can represent the plane with just some wings. Right, planes like this. Now, the helicopter was flying, oh God, this is going to be a really bad drawing of a helicopter. The helicopter was flying at 200, but you can see right at the end of the data recorder, it gets up to 300 where they crash. Now the helicopter, let's say we're looking at the cockpit, okay? And we got glass panel, glass panel, glass panel. And we got all our controls and whistles and shit going on down here, radios, Garmin's, trackers, all the shit, all the panels are right here. But you can see the sky, right? You can see out in front of you. But there's also this big-ass above-head console right here with, like, buttons and shit going on, radio communication. And the end of what you can see is up here, right? Just like in your car, you probably have an overhead console in your car. Right, with garage door opener, sunglass holder. It's got an overhead console in it. Now, a helicopter. Oh, God, this is much worse. A helicopter doesn't fly like this, right? God, that's bad. A helicopter, to pick up speed, doesn't fly like this. It couldn't, right? Because it's got blades. This is how a helicopter would hover or how a helicopter would go up, okay? If it's doing 120 knots coming through there, and with the helicopters like this, you got awesome line of sight here, all over, right? You can see everything through your windshield. And remember, they were flying under visual, right? They were saying, I can see the plane. But a helicopter flying at 120 knots, a helicopter flying with any real speed is going to be flying more like this. Right? And now your vision's reduced to here, here, and here. Because these blades have to be pulling the air out in front of you. That's how they go forward, right? An airplane flies and a helicopter beats the air into submission, okay? Helicopters pick up speed by going nose down. That does restrict your view. Absolutely. You got a big ass console over your head here. And if the plane is right here, it's not going to be very easy to see, especially at 120 knots. Now, there's all kinds of things to consider. Like, you could build up your speed and then come back nose up and still be going that same direction, right? They definitely were above their allowable max altitude. It's 200. It's 200. Yeah, I'm not getting into the collective right now. No one in my chat's gonna understand collective pitch. They were definitely above their 200 max altitude. They hit at 3
hours.
Thank you, though.
Minutes
I know what you're talking about.
of good quality audio. ADS-B and FDR time were correlated. Timing will continue to be refined. Times are in Eastern Standard Time and are preliminary.
So what he's saying in chat is there's also a thing called the collective pitch. So the rotor blades can change pitch without the actual body having to change any pitch.
The FDR captures the entirety of the accident flight. The CVR audio, because it is only 2 hours in duration, starts mid-flight. Prior to initial descent, the crew briefed the arrival for the Troops 5 arrival, followed by an ILS approach to runway 1 at DCA. Around 8:15, the aircraft left 37,000 feet for an initial descent. At 8:39:10, Potomac approached, cleared the crew for the Mount Vernon.
ILS is a thing that uses basically a big-ass radio beam. Well, I guess a big-ass. It sends a radio beam towards the pilot as he's coming in, right? And guides him into the runway. Okay? And because the beam comes out like a cone, all right, you have... As you're coming down, it gets tighter and tighter. It actually gets more accurate the closer you get to it. Because if not, you'd be outside of the beam. It doesn't come up like a straight wall. It starts at a point from the ground and gets wider as it goes down. Right? So it includes a beam going this way and a beam going this way. So you have horizontal guidance and vertical guidance into the runway.
Visual runway 1 approach. At 8:43:06, the crew made initial contact with the DCA tower. The tower controller then asked if the crew could switch to runway 33. After a brief discussion between the crew, they agreed to runway 33.
And here's a question. We looked at the runway. Hold on. Here's one that someone's drawn on for some reason, but here's a runway. The one with this blue line here is runway 1, okay? The one with this red line is 33. If we look at this at the, hold on, the map. They were switched off, right? Is this it? Okay. So runway 1 is in line with this river. Okay, it goes straight up and down in line with this river. 33 comes in at an angle like this. There's a chance that the Black Hawk pilots will know if we get if we have a recording in the cockpit of the Black Hawk. There's a chance that they thought they were still short of the plane because they still thought they were going to runway 1. They didn't change, even if they heard it, even if they confirmed it, in their head, they're still thinking, oh, they're going to that first runway, so we'll be a couple hundred feet short of them no matter what. That's why I think the ATC says, go behind them right there at the end. And they again say, right, Roger, we have visual separation, right? Because to make this 3-3, you have to come out here kind of wide and land. To make this 1-1, you're coming straight up the river. Or to make runway 1, you're coming straight up the river. To make the 3-3, you come out here kind of wide, overland, then back across the river and land. Still a chance of that, I guess.
At 8:45:27, the autopilot was
I didn't tell you guys that one of the Facebook fucking lunatics that's always sending me all these messages about fucking COVID and Trump and the deep state and abortion doctors and this fucking... I've never responded to a single message of hers. I've got them all pulled up. This crazy bitch today told Donald Trump and J.D. Vance on me by tagging them in my Facebook post. Apparently they're coming to shut me down. So if we lose Facebook, it's not my fault.
disconnected. At 8:46:01, a radio transmission from the tower was audible, informing Pat 25 that traffic just south of the Wilson Bridge was a CRJ at 1,200 feet circling to runway 33. At 8:46:29, the crew...
Here's a good look right here at what I was trying to talk about. So if they think they're still landing... Oh, I have to move it for the people up on the... If they still think they're landing on 1-1, or 1-1, that's this one, right? If they think they're still landing on 1, that's this, the one that's almost straight with the river. If they were right here, right, just off to the side of 3-3, if they're right here beside the chat, coming in here, right, they think they're still short of them if they didn't get that and update that, right? Here, I'll move it over here to where it's easier to see. I can fix this back. Yeah, if they thought they were still coming here, and the Black Hawk is sitting here somewhere, they're still going to think that they're short. Even though they don't have eyes on. I think the visual separation is an issue here where he's like, request visual separation. It's almost automatic he says that. Because that is the, like the other guy says, that's the magic words they have to say to be able to fly through this zone. If they don't say visual separation, they're not going to be allowed to go through here. They're going to be told to hold up, to wait, get instructions. They're going to have to fly by those instructions. So I think rather than saying visual separation and meaning like, I see them, I got visual separation, they're saying, oh yeah, it's just like an automatic response. Automatic response. It's got to come out, so it comes out automatically, rather than confirming they actually do have visual separation.
Received a 1,000-foot automated call-out. At 8:46:47, DCA Tower cleared other jet traffic on runway 1 for departure with no delay. At 8:47:29, the crew received a 500-foot automated call-out. At 8:47:39, a radio transmission from the tower was audible asking Pat 25 if the CRJ was in sight. 1 second later, the crew received an automated traffic advisory stating traffic.
That's the automatic, the ATAX, right? Automatic traffic avoidance and collision system or whatever.
At 8:47:42, a radio transmission from the tower was...
That's wild that they were just, I don't want to say ignoring it, but there was a warning going off. Hey, you're too close to other people. Now, in the plane, when you get down so low in the plane, it stops giving those warnings because it doesn't want to give you a resolution that'll cause you to fucking nosedive into the ground. It doesn't want to say, like, dive, and you fucking dive it into the ground.
Directing Pat 25 to pass behind the CRJ. At 8:47:58, the crew had a verbal reaction, and FDR data showed the airplane beginning to increase its pitch. Sounds of impact were audible about 1 second later, followed by the end of the recording. A CVR group consisting of party representatives from the NTSB, PSA, ALPA, and the FAA has been convened. The group is currently working to transcribe the entirety of the CVR recording verbatim. Thank you.
I would be interested to hear that. Are there any details that shine some light on this from the cockpit voice recorder? Like him, somebody saying like, that's it. Well, I think that's it. Or, you know, something like that. Something that would shed some light on. Were they actually looking at it? Did they think it was going to a different runway? Did they think it was a different fucking plane? Hear them say, oh yeah, it's way over there. Well, obviously it's not because they're fixing to run into it. Something that might shed some light on it.
We will take some questions at the end, but we have some additional details we definitely want to brief you on today. I want to clarify something that was, I think, presented by NTSB in some form, specifically around air traffic control. The Washington DCA Tower was communicating out any transmission on a VHF and UHF frequency. Any transmission would come out on both bands. The Black Hawk was transmitting out with a UHF band, while the CRJ jet was transmitting out with a VHF.
Remember how I told you one is on high frequency, but the military is on ultra high frequency, right? So everything that the tower said comes across both. But so both the helicopter and both the pilot hear everything from the ground, but the helicopter and the airplane can't hear each other.
To put that in context, both the airplane and the helicopter would hear any air traffic control, but they would not hear the other aircraft or helicopter, conversely, if they were transmitting out.
I think one goes up to like 300 megahertz. That's the VHF. Goes up to 300, and then the UHF starts there and goes up to like fucking 3 gigahertz or some shit.
I bring that up because we are now working through the transcript of the air traffic control, and many people have heard online different recordings. Those do not contain the UHF radio transmissions. What they are hearing is the VHF recorded on certain software programs.
But we have heard both. The guy put them together, both.
As we synchronize the timing on that, we hope to be able to release it tomorrow. We do have it. We're working through the synchronization because the specific time will be very critical. A few updates in regard to the Black Hawk helicopter. We can verify it was on a training flight that would utilize night vision goggles. We do not know at this time if the night vision goggles were actively being worn, nor what the setting may be. Further investigation should be able to let us know if that occurred and what factor it may play in the overall accident. We do know that and we announced the combination CVR and the flight data recorder was extracted last night from the aircraft. When it was brought to our lab and opened, there was a water intrusion. Again, this is not uncommon. If you recall in the CRJ, that cockpit voice recorder also had water intrusion. It is going through the same process of ionized water until it's put into a vacuum oven. We still are very confident we will have that data. On the Black Hawk, we can confirm that we are looking into a priority air transport, and that's where you hear PAT, that on the prior day, PAT...
I know Vance came out and tried to fucking play defense, saying Trump wasn't blaming anyone when he linked it to DEI hires. Then what the fuck was he saying? Vance says, the president made very clear that he wasn't blaming anybody, but he was being very explicit about the fact that DEI policies have led our air traffic controllers to be short-staffed. That is a scandal. No, he was literally there like, well, how do you know it has something to do with DEI? And he's like, I got common sense. That's exactly what he was doing.
P-11 was in close contact with a Republic Air flight. The Republic Air flight rejected the landing. PAT-11.
This was, PAT 11 was less than 24 hours the day before. So what's happening is an airplane is coming into land now from the north side, from upriver. It's coming into land. Almost the same scenario. Original jet coming into land. A Black Hawk coming in front of it. The Black Hawk says, I got visual separation. They get so close to the regional jet. Now, it's a little bit higher, so it's still getting voice commands from its ATACs. When they get too close, it says traffic, and recommends that they pull up. It gives them what they call a resolution. What is a resolution? It's something to solve a problem, right? So it tells them to pull up. They have to pull up and dodge a helicopter, and they have to pull up so much that they get off their flight path to land and have to get a go-around. This was less than 24 hours, less than 24 hours before this crash. Almost the exact same thing happened. Black Hawk, regional jet, way too close. This one just happened. They didn't happen to hit, right? I had to do a go around because they were too close. But it seems like this might happen semi-often, right? Or at least too often.
Was in close contact with a Republic Air flight. The Republic Air flight rejected the landing and did a go-around. The reason we are bringing this up is our data currently shows there was over 1,000 feet of separation between those two aircraft.
There's still people on TikTok that are in all the videos saying Joe Ellis is a trans woman or a man or whatever. They want so bad for somebody to be trans in the helicopter. Like, it's wild. They went out and found somebody who already had to make a video saying, I am a pilot, but I'm alive. I didn't die. Here I am. Today's date is blah, blah, blah. Like, they want it so fucking bad. It's crazy.
1,000 feet is a good safety barrier. Obviously, the pilot made its own decision in rejecting the landing. We just wanted to bring that fact out. It will be considered in the overall evaluation of this accident. So now let's go into some controllers.
I know that the FAA and the NTSB can sometimes be super fickle. So the guy that we follow that flies the Kit Fox on the short takeoff and landing videos or whatever, he got in trouble in his license because whenever he's landed, he's allowed to land at places as long as he's got clearance at places that are not runways, right? It's a bush plane. And his friend had a runway that he put in his backyard. And then he was going to try to land at his friend's house. His friend asked him to, wanted to see the plane, wanted him to land there, had pictures of it. He had walked it, everything. They require, if you've never landed in that area, to do a low enough pass to make visual contact, make sure there's no obstructions, there's no ruts, there's not a kid laying in the middle of it, there's not, a truck parked there, something that's going to kill you or somebody else. So he comes down to make the low pass to view it and decides, I don't know about this. It looked a little rough, looked a little short. I don't think I'm going to land, and then flies off. Decides not to land at this strip with his visual inspection. Waves it off, says, I'm not going to land here. His neighbors, the guy's neighbors, call it in and say that the airplane's flying too low near their house. So he came down below 500 feet to do this inspection. The FAA and NTSB pull his license. He fights this in court and loses. They pull his license for unsafe flying, basically, because he's flying so low. But they also require him to make a visual confirmation of the landing site. It's a wild story. And they literally tell him, if he would have landed there on this runway, they would have considered this a visual inspection of the runway. But since he didn't land there, even though he did a visual inspection and made the smart choice, it's unsafe, because he didn't land there, he couldn't prove that he wasn't just flying low to be a maverick and actually was eyeballing the runway to see if he could land. Like, it's a fucking wild story. You think the safer option would always win. Okay, you called off the landing? Perfect. We don't want you doing anything unsafe. But it's like he actually got penalized for not landing there, which is wild. I think he lost his license for like 6 months or some shit. I had to get it reinstated.
At the time of the accident, there were 5 controllers in the air traffic control tower cab at DCA. One was a local controller, which was handling not only helicopter, but fixed-wing aircraft. The local controller also would be handling arrivals and departures close in airspace and the use of the runway. There was a ground controller, which was handling all aircraft and vehicles not on the runway. In addition, there was a local assist controller. This person is responsible for assisting the local controller in any type of actions that are needing, reviewing data, scanning the field, a multitude of different things. You will not hear the assistant controller on any of the ATC tapes, but we can confirm that person was in the cab. In addition, there's an operations supervisor who has direct oversight over the tower. This is someone who manages everyone that's involved in the operation, along with an operational supervisor in training. That leads us to confirm there were 5 people in the tower at the time of the accident. At this time, we have interviewed the local controller, the ground controller, and the local assist controller. We anticipate having the interviews with the operations supervisor and the supervisor in training conducted no later than Monday evening. And for a little bit of context, this is
the guy's name is Trent Palmer, if you want to look it up. He had a big whole thing. He's wealthy. He hired a lawyer, tried to fight against them. It didn't work.
Controller's worst nightmare. It hits everyone that works in that cab and knows them very hard. These interviews take a long time, not because there's that much talking, but there's several breaks that occur for emotions, just to be able to compose themselves to talk about what happened. We want to be thorough. If we need to go back for additional information, we absolutely will. We're getting full cooperation and access to those individuals we need, and we hope, again, to have them completed no later than Monday. Now we're going to talk a little bit about altitude. And I'm going to preface this, and we're going to try to work through your questions. But I want to be very clear. Our team has had some internal debate on releasing one part of this. And whenever I explain it, I hope you will understand why. When we received the recorders from the CRJ, we were able to define an altitude of where it was very close to the time of impact. That is a data point we feel very comfortable with. We also have an initial set of information in regard to what was being seen on the cab in the control tower. We have not finalized that and need to get more granularity to it. And we currently...
The final argument came down to, you're not allowed to operate within 500 feet of any people, vehicle, structures, or whatever, except when necessary for takeoff or landing purposes. And his argument was, I'm required to do a visual inspection, right? That's recommended and required. And that was for landing purposes, right? I was trying to land there, but they threw that argument. They didn't like it.
Really don't have the readout from the Blackhawk. I put all that into context for you in that whenever I give you some altitude information, one part of the three pieces we have defined. Another part we feel fairly confident but need to get more information, and a third we don't even have. Currently, the CRJ, based upon the data recorder, at the time of impact, was at 325 feet, plus or minus 25 feet. This is from the belly of the CRJ. The CRJ itself is 20 feet and 8 inches from the wheel to the top of the tail. This is a quarter, and a third we don't even have.
Another video I saw said that when they're prepping their helicopter, there are some performance numbers they put in about, wind and weight and shit like that. And one of them relies on barometric pressure. I think that's what he said. To adjust the altimeter. And if you put that in wrong for some reason, basically your altimeter will be off all the time. I don't know how true this is. Again, I'm not a pilot. So let's say you're supposed to put in 883 and you put in 893, and now your altimeter's off, how high you're flying the entire flight. So I guess this is kind of reaching, right? Because we don't have any details yet. But they might have thought they were at 200 feet, even though we're at 300 feet. Especially at night with night vision goggles, it'd probably be hard to tell.
Currently, the CRJ, based upon the data recorder, at the time of impact, was at 325 feet, plus or minus 25 feet. This is from the belly of the CRJ. The CRJ itself is 20 feet and 8 inches from the wheel to the top of the tail. So from the belly, the CRJ at time of impact is 325, less or minus 25 degrees. And for those who follow this closely, that is a corrected altitude. It is based on the ADSB data and the flight data recorder.
Okay.
Our preliminary review of what the tower cab was showing on the data screen that would have been in front of the command in 8 inches from the wheel, fairly confident, but need to get more information, and a third we don't even have. Currently, the CRJ, based upon the data recorder, at the time of impact, was at 325 feet.
325 feet.
Plus or minus 25 feet. This is from the belly of the CRJ. The CRJ itself is 20 feet and 8 inches from the wheel to the top of the tail. So from the belly, the CRJ at time of impact is 325, less or minus 25 degrees. And for those who follow this closely,
25 feet. But yeah.
That is a corrected altitude. It is based on the ADSB data and the flight data recorder. Our preliminary review of what the tower cab was showing on the data screen that would have been in front of the controllers was 200 feet near the time of the accident. Again, this data is preliminary. Tomorrow, we feel very comfortable that we'll be getting the additional data sources that will confirm precisely what it would have been on the screen at the time. And I would also caution you, there's typically in the cab on that screen, it may be a 4 to 5 second refresh rate. But obviously, this is something that we're going to be looking at very closely.
So that was those numbers that we were seeing where it said 003, 002, that right there on the radar, right? It says their approximate altitude. But again, it's not refreshing like their altimeter is, where it's like constantly going up or constantly going down. It just refreshes ever so often.
Closely. The third prong of that is the helicopter recorders. Between those three, whenever we have those data points finalized, we feel that we'll be very comfortable in saying exactly what altitude this occurred at. And I know that's been a lot of speculation. You may have a few questions on it, but I want to caution, we're trying to give you what information we have and we verified at that time. With that, we'll take some questions. Just one second.
Claudia from AP. So you said that the altitude, and the recorder recorded the altitude of the CRJ. Was it trying to pull up before the collision? Is that what you were saying?
The question was the altitude that was read from the ADSB and the voice recorder, was it trying to pull up? I can tell you at one point very close to the impact, there was a slight change in pitch, an increase.
So right as they're getting ready to hit. It also looked like, I mean, this isn't super accurate, but it also looked like the plane's flying here, and the helicopter's basically coming at it. It looked like it was trying to go left of the nose, and it makes a slight adjustment to the left, but They're way too late. Way too late. Yeah. So maybe it'd be hard for that plane to see that fucking Black Hawk.
Increase in pitch. That is something that we will get you more detail on, but it was an indication of an increase in pitch.
Thank you, Dr. Trouble with the box. So are you also saying that there was a 100-foot discrepancy between what the air traffic controller was seeing on the screen in front of them and what the height, the altitude of the plane?
So he's asking about it. You're saying 325 plus or minus 25, and you're saying the cab said 200. So you're saying there's a 100-foot discrepancy between the two readings?
There's a 100 feet difference?
So the question is, was there a 100 feet difference between what we found the plane to be operating at and the air traffic control tower? I'm saying the initial data we have on the control tower cab says 200 feet would have been visualized. This is a fairly good estimate, but it needs to be finalized. I should say estimate. It's a fairly good initial read. It needs to be finalized. And again, the CRJ was operating at 325 feet plus or minus 25.
And how common is it that the two aircraft would be operating on different frequencies with the same control tower?
The question is how common...
Well, it's because it's military and civilian.
That the two aircraft would be operating on separate frequencies. It is completely common. A military operates on one frequency, civilian another. We're just trying to clarify that because you're only reading something or hearing some things online, so we're trying to get out and dispel some myths. Yes, sir.
Mr. Edmund Bagel out with DC News Now. At this point, you've given us the CRJ, but can you speculate on the altitude of the PAT at this point?
So what was the altitude? You've given us the altitude of the jet, right? The regional jet. Can you give us the altitude of the helicopter? Well, it was also at 300 feet, or they wouldn't have hit. But I don't think they have that yet.
We cannot speculate. The question is, can we give any information on the altitude of the PAT? We cannot at this point. Obviously, an impact occurred.
I'm gonna eat a gummy bear.
I would say when an impact occurs,
he gets mad.
The altitude of both aircraft.
He seems like he's doing a good job.
But again, when we have the data from the recorder, we will be able to give you more specific.
He seems pretty calm.
Sir, there have been reports. Can you comment on reports that PAT may have flown above its max limit in that airspace?
So the question was, can I comment on reports that PAT may have flown above its max limits? No, because I haven't heard that. And I don't try to look at the media that much. So by not saying that, I'm not denying, but I just haven't heard it. We haven't discussed it. I'll ask the investigator in charge. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, I can provide just a little bit of context. The PAT 25 was within the lateral boundaries of a helicopter route. The ceiling of that route was 200 feet. As Member Inman said, we have not got the data out of the FDR for the Black Hawk at this time, but that's what we know.
Okay, we're going to go down here.
David Kaplan with Fox 5 here in D.C.
It was in the path. Wait.
Hawk at this time was 200 feet. Was within the lateral boundaries of a helicopter route. The ceiling of that route was 200 feet. As Member Inman said, we have not got the data out of the FDR for the Black Hawk at this time, but that's what we know.
Okay, we're going to go down here.
It was within the lateral boundaries. They're not comment. It was within left and right of the boundaries of a helicopter path, and its ceiling should have been 200 feet, but it wasn't. It doesn't sound like. Not if the other one was at 325, they wouldn't have hit. They'd have been 125 feet of clearance. It's a stressful job and a frustrating job. A lot of air traffic controllers end up freaking dying of heart attacks. Or stress-related something death.
David Kaplan with Fox 5 here in D.C. You mentioned as you walked through the timeline that there was a broadcast over the cockpit of traffic. Can you talk about what indications, if any, you have that the plane's anti-collision system was working? It's my understanding that broadcast goes out if the system has been activated. Can you comment on what you learned about the anti-collision system?
The question is about the traffic that was heard on the cockpit voice recorder. I can say this. We are defining what is inside of each system and what was they were outputting. Because of the unique nature of military aircraft, we need additional specialization, which we have. But for right now, we're trying to present you with what we've heard, so we need further information to be able to find why it was indicating traffic. Yes?
The night goggles, how will you determine if they were wearing the night goggles or not?
The question was, how will we determine if they were wearing the night vision goggles or not? Part of that will be based, and we already know during the extraction of the bodies, how they were presented and what was around them. I can say that impact was very significant, and so it will take additional analysis of their helmets, the attached areas. We're looking to find.
So the night vision goggles don't just like, it's not like you hold them up or they would have been secured on their fucking on their flight helmets.
If the night vision goggle bags, whenever we extract the aircraft, are they empty? Are they found in the debris field? There's a lot of different variables we need to find out before we determine that. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chase William with Fox Business. I know there's
Those are also sensitive items, so the military is going to be really interested in recovering those. Ask me how I know.
4 minutes before impact that there was a runway switch. They switched to 33. How routine is that? And is that enough lead time for pilots and other traffic in the area to be aware of, just
Plenty enough. He was over 5 miles out. Yeah.
patterns?
Okay, so the question was in regard to, the term you used was runway switch. And we briefed this yesterday. The CRJ was on approach to runway 33. They'd been brought in that way. As they were coming in, they were asked by the air traffic control, could they accept, sorry, let me reverse that. They were coming in on runway 1. As they were on approach, the air traffic controller said, can you accept runway 33? That is not an uncommon occurrence at DCA. It creates an arcing of the flight path, so it's very normal. Pilots were actually able to discuss it. They accepted it. They appeared to be on a proper, at least lineup at that time.
Here's the map we're talking about. So this is route, we're looking at route 1 here, right? The ceiling here, 200 feet, okay? 200 feet max. All the way down here, 200 feet max. Until you get south of this where it says Wilson Bridge, that's where it goes to 300. You cannot be above 200 feet until you get all the way down here, Wilson Bridge.
So right now we're evaluating with all the other facts and data, but it is what it is at this point, I guess. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here's a better one. That actually shows below the bridge. So there you go. See down below the bridge here, it says 300. We got 200. There's 300 all the way up here by the Washington Monument. Then 200, 200, 200, 300 past this bridge.
I just have a question about the staffing of the air traffic. You tell me that's not, or to have that level of staff, or is it traditionally 4 people at the time? Yeah.
The question was the staffing at the time of the actual accident with the 5 individuals. I have not gotten an update from the air traffic control people. I know the primary thing we wanted to get was exactly that, and there's been discussions because, again, typical can change based on the day of the week, the time, the weather. So we will not categorize anything as typical right now until we can present it in a better fashion. Yes, sir.
Eric Gilchrist, NBC News. If I heard you correctly, you said that the tower was able to see the airplane at 200 feet. The tower was read at 200 feet. Did it not read where the helicopter was at the same time?
The question was, what was, it was reading the airplane. And could it not read the helicopter? It could read the helicopter. And the reason why I'm saying it could, and this is again getting into more specific information, the definition that's needed for us to evaluate that further will be downloaded tomorrow. Do you want to answer a little bit on how those control towers, or I'm happy to continue. Okay. Those monitors obviously assimilate different pieces of information. So our initial read was showing that. We're giving you the 200 feet as indicative of the CRJ. I don't want to speculate specifically on the Black Hawk. Sorry, it's reverse, right?
So, as previously stated, we know that the FDR and data provided indicated that the CRJ was at 325 feet, plus or minus 25 feet. We also, initial preliminary data right now indicates that on the tower's radar scope that was available to the controller, initial data indicates that he may have seen 200 feet. That needs to be verified. Our ATC group is working it. We will have more data available, but those are the initial indications.
And no indication for the Black Hawk on that screen at that same time?
The data that I'm talking about, the 200-foot data that would have been available on that radar scope, that was the Black Hawk.
Oh, okay. So it was misspoke earlier. So he was seeing 325 on one and 200 on the other. Still kind of close, right? But not both of them at the exact same height.
The 325-foot that we've given you is ADS-B data, FDR data, other data combined to get an accurate altitude of the CRJ 325.
So what they're saying is, that as far as the air traffic controller knew, they were separated by at least 100 feet in elevation, plus whatever distance they were laterally.
Plus or minus 25. The radar data where that helicopter is down at 200 feet, it has less fidelity. So our team is looking into that, but I think it's important to note that this is a complex investigation. There's a lot of pieces here. Our team is working very hard to gather this data, make sure we, as Member Inman has said, understand why this happened.
Sorry, Bryce.
Hang on, I'll call the people. Yes, ma'am.
Can you just confirm what your colleague just said at the CRJ was showing?
Ooh. I can already tell he's getting a little bit upset, huh?
At 375 feet, Black Hawk was showing at 200.
So the question again, and I'm going to try to say this one more time. The CRJ at the time of impact, based on ADSB data and the voice and the data in the flight recorder, shows that airplane was positioned at 325 feet plus or minus 25 feet. On the radar scope in the cab, our preliminary review shows that the Black Hawk helicopter would have visualized at 200 feet.
So even though it was at 300, the air traffic controller had a reason to believe they weren't at the same elevation. Or altitude, I guess.
It's not as defined. That is preliminary. We will get more significant information. We wanted to present.
But obviously, they had to be both at 300 to collide. But right now, the air traffic controller probably saw less of an issue than we're thinking, right? It wasn't like, oh, this guy's at 300, this guy's at 300. They're headed right towards each other. They're going to hit, right? He thought there was at least 100 feet of altitude, and he told him to go behind him. So that's even more separation that he thought they had.
At 325 plus or minus, because we knew that, we have good certainty with it, but without presenting it with the radar scope information, or with presenting that, it could cause some conflict. So I'm going to be very careful to make sure we still have a lot more work to do. These are one of thousands of data points and will be hundreds of thousands of pages. We're trying to release the information as we know it and make sure we're giving the best information that's accurate and learning from it.
Yep. Yesterday you talked about spending time with some of the victims' families. Can you describe any updates today?
The question is about spending time with the members' families. I spent several hours with them today. There's more. Some new. There's some that have been there for 3 days. Some that want to give us hugs. There's some that are just mad and angry. They're just all hurt, and they still want answers, and we want to give them answers. And the most devastating thing, I guess, today was they watched the news last night. They know their loved ones were recovered. They're thinking, is it going to take longer? Am I not going to find my loved one? How will this affect it? That's hard. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. Ain't no one has to suffer this. So yeah, it is hard on them. They have a lot of questions. They haven't been through this. Unfortunately, we have a lot of experts. We've done 1,000. That doesn't mean it's not completely new to them. What's really horrible, though, is that these things are happening. I keep a challenge coin. When I first got to the HSB, they asked, it's a challenge coin you hand to people. Does it sign of gratitude and respect? The front of it has the seal and name. I said, what do you want to put on the back? This was on the front door of our training center where the TW-800 was for many years. From tragedy, we draw knowledge to improve the safety for us all. That's what we're doing right now. We're dealing with tragedy, but we need to improve safety. We need 200 plus recommendations fixed. We need people to take action. Unfortunately, at some point, all of you are going to be gone. We're still going to have the investigation open. We're going to make recommendations. We go to East Palestine, a community that gets devastated. Still nothing's happened. We have several hundred recommendations open for aviation. You want to do something about it? Adopt the recommendation of the NTSB. You'll save lives. Get off and do something. I don't want to have to meet with another set of those parents like that again. Not fair. Could be your family. Sorry, I didn't mean to take it on you. It's just hard. Sorry.
I have two, and I just want to follow up because I want to make sure I understand the elevation question correctly. The flight data recorder on the CRJ is showing 325 plus or minus 25. That's correct, right?
The question is, and I apologize, I've said this 3 or 4 times, on the CRJ, the flight data recorder that has been localized from the ADSB data and other is showing the time of impact. It was at 325 plus or minus 25 feet.
Okay. That's probably really accurate. Right, that's the black box from the plane.
The 200 feet inside of the air traffic control cab was for the helicopter.
The question again, the preliminary data that we have not validated.
That is Congress's baby, that airport. They love it.
Yet, and are still trying to verify, was that the radar scope was showing the helicopter at 200 feet. Now again, we're not saying plus or minus because we don't really know that. It's not as granular. We will have the exact data set tomorrow evening. We knew you would have some questions, so please be responsible in reporting this. We need more info, but we know that some of that information is coming out, and we're trying to provide it. No more. Sorry, I've answered the same question several times. Sorry. Go ahead.
This is just a clarification point on this topic. I understand what the...
oh, God, is he going to ask it again? He just said no more.
In the ATC tab was showing and what the black box showed you from the CRJ. I guess the question is, what would explain the discrepancy, which appears to be 100 feet, when clearly they hit you?
He's done.
The question is, what would explain this discrepancy? That's what our job is to figure that out. That's what we're doing. That's the reason we're giving you information to dispel some
We saw that on the radar, right, that somebody had recorded and we watched. It said 002, 002, 002, 002, 002. Then right before they hit, it says 003.
Some information that may be out there.
And this guy told them that the fidelity is not as good the lower you are. It's not as fine in the details. Plus, it's not like it's saying that it's I don't know when the rollover is. You would think at like maybe above 250 it goes to 3, but you're only seeing one digit. Right? You're only seeing one digit. It's 002. It's not 00212 for 212 feet. It's 002. So they could have been at 249, 249, 249, 249. Then as soon as they hit 251 is when it goes, to 3.
Standard across the world because we tell the facts. And sometimes we have to give a little bit something preliminary so that you don't have an improper.
Or maybe it doesn't even say 3 until they get above 3.
Picture. That's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
The 4 to 5 second delay that you described.
Damn. Well, that's the update. Do we have anything on the Learjet? I spent all this time explaining it. Watch everything I said was wrong. Day ago, 2 days ago, a day ago. Learjet missile crash from 2 days ago. So what this one is.
The Learjet 55, a twin-engine business jet, departed from Northeast Philadelphia Airport on a routine flight to Springfield Branson National Airport in Missouri, according to the FAA. The aircraft, known for its speed and efficiency, was designed to operate in various weather conditions.
Yeah, he was pretty done.
Off occurred at approximately 6:07 p.m., but shortly after becoming airborne, the jet encountered a technical issue. Weather conditions at the time included light rain and fog, reducing visibility to about 5 to 7 miles. From the top angle, we can see the experienced pilot made a hard descending left-hand turn with no correctional input.
There's the stall or whatever's going on, right? That happens when they start fucking diving quick.
The pilot was likely confused or disoriented once entering the cloud and rain. While modern jets are built to handle adverse weather, unforeseen mechanical failures or environmental factors can still pose significant risks. Tragically, just moments into the flight, the aircraft lost control and crashed near Roosevelt Mall, creating a huge explosion of smoke. The aircraft in question was a jet rescue air ambulance, a medical flight operated.
The site of the crash near Reagan Airport was about 8 feet deep in some areas, so no. Typically 10 to 20 feet, but the deeper channels can range all the way up to 80 feet, but it's an average of about 8 feet around where the crash site is, apparently.
By a specialized air ambulance company. This particular Learjet 55 registered as XA, UCI, and owned by the company. The aircraft was on a critical medical transport mission, highlighting the vital role such flights play in emergency healthcare. According to the company, there were 6 people on board at the time of the crash.
Maybe they need to change the standard where you say, where they say, hey, you got traffic, regional jet, and you have to call back with like a direction and distance or something. Yeah, we see them at such and such degrees, estimating 2 miles away. And then if you're wrong, they'll say, no, it's actually at this degree and they're 3 miles away or something. I don't know.
4 crew members and 2 passengers, a child patient and their attending caregiver. These air ambulances are typically equipped with advanced medical equipment and staffed by trained professionals to ensure critical patients receive continuous care while in transit. In this video, you can see the plane dropping fast, almost like a missile, before crashing and erupting into a massive fireball. The explosion was so
that was terrifying on board. Dude, basically falling out of the sky.
Intense because the jet was fueled up for a long flight to Mexico. With full tanks, the impact causing much bigger fireball than usual. If you take a closer look, the plane appears to be nose down, falling at high speed, almost like.
And it looks like it's got the tail section and everything on it. I don't know that the airframe. You think of an oxygen tank or something blew out. I feel like I can see both wings and a tail in that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I can.
If you take a closer look, the plane appears to be nose down, falling at high speed, almost like a bullet. And with all that fuel on board, the explosion was even more devastating than expected. Interestingly, in the past 2 months, there have been multiple major plane crashes. On January 28, 2025, an $85 million F-35 jet crashed in Alaska. The following day, on January 29, an American Airlines plane collided with a Black Hawk helicopter. Then, on January 31, 2025, a medical plane went down for unknown reasons. In addition to these recent incidents, South Korea experienced a plane crash on December 29, 2024, when an aircraft struck an antenna. Just days earlier, on December 25, 2024, an Azerbaijani plane was hit by a Russian Panzer missile. All of these tragic events occurred within 45 days, so let's study these plane crashes further. Another round of questions. Why did the F-35 crash again? For the 3rd time in less than a year, a U.S. Air Force F-35 Lightning II, a stealth fighter with a staggering $82 million price tag, has crashed. The latest incident occurred on Tuesday, the 28th, 2025 at 12:49 p.m. during a training exercise at Alaska's Eagleson Air Force Base. The pilot managed to eject safely, but the jet was completely destroyed with its wreckage left burning inside the base's perimeter. This isn't just a string of bad luck. It's starting to look like a pattern. Back in May 2024, an F-35 crashed in New Mexico after a refueling stop, leaving the pilot seriously injured. Before that, in September 2023, a Marine Corps F-35B went down in South Carolina after the pilot ejected mid-flight due to a malfunction. The jet, shockingly, continued flying unmanned for 11 minutes before crashing into a field. Now in January 2025, the Alaska crash adds another chapter to this growing list of mishaps, sparking even louder concerns about the jet's safety. Why is this happening? Cold weather seems to be a recurring theme when it comes to F-35 issues. Alaska's freezing temperatures have caused trouble for these jets before. In 2018, cold air penetrated the aircraft's systems during landing, overwhelming battery heaters and triggering false alarms. Pilots had to make emergency landings because of this, and Lockheed Martin claimed to have fixed the issue by updating the software to ignore the cold's effects. But with temperatures at Eielson dipping below minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit this week, it's fair to ask if this problem has come back to haunt the jet. Investigators haven't confirmed anything yet, but the Arctic climate definitely makes it a prime suspect. The F-35's cutting-edge technology is another factor that raises questions. Its cockpit is filled entirely with digital screens and software, no traditional analog dials. If you look at the F-16 cockpit, it has a mix of both analog and digital outputs. While this setup offers advanced capabilities, it also leaves the aircraft vulnerable to glitches. In the South Carolina crash of 2023, the pilot's helmet display flickered out during a storm, leaving him disoriented. Following the manual, he ejected when the jet seemed uncontrollable. Later, investigators determined the jet was still flyable, but vague wording in the manual didn't give the pilot much confidence in the moment. Finally, there's the challenge of balancing human and machine. Even experienced pilots can find themselves struggling with the F-35's complex systems. In the Alaska crash, the pilot reported an in-flight malfunction before ejecting. Was it a sensor error?
I don't know why it's showing like a flat spin like this. I don't think it was nearly that bad.
A mechanical failure? Or simply the aircraft's technology overwhelming the person in the cockpit? Until the investigation concludes, we're left with more questions.
Was there oxygen tank or tanks in the plane? I don't think there wouldn't have been an oxygen tank big enough to make that explosion bigger, no. I think what you're seeing is all the fuel. I mean, slightly maybe. I mean, it's an oxidizer, but I don't think when you're talking about all that fuel and then a little bitty oxygen tank, I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
And answers. Azerbaijan Airlines Flight J28243 was en route from the Azerbaijani capital, Baku, to Grozny, the capital of the Chechen Republic in Russia, when it encountered a critical situation mid-flight. The aircraft was forced to make an emergency landing approximately 3 kilometers, which is around 1.8 miles away from Aktau, a city located on the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan. The incident resulted in the plane crashing on the opposite shore of the Caspian Sea, after what was described as an emergency maneuver. The nearest Russian airport along the plane's intended flight.
So this was actually Russian anti-aircraft shot this plane down.
Flight path located in Makhachkala, the capital of Dagestan. At 10:43 a.m. Kazakh time, which is Russia's Rostov Air Traffic Control Center, received a signal indicating that the crew had decided to divert the flight to Aktau due to adverse weather conditions in Baku and Makhachkala, a city in Russia's Dagestan region. At 10:53 a.m., the Rostov flight director informed Aktau's flight manager that an oxygen tank in the passenger cabin had exploded. This explosion reportedly caused passengers to lose consciousness, prompting the crew to request immediate medical assistance upon landing. Emergency teams were swiftly mobilized at Aktau Airport in preparation for the aircraft's arrival. At 11:02 a.m., the pilots made contact with Aktau Airport's air traffic control tower. Despite their efforts, the crew faced significant challenges during their descent. They attempted to land twice but were unable to maintain altitude or stabilize.
Here's the F-35 post-ejection. But and a fighter jet's not like a regular airplane that's fucking got a good glide path and shit. They got to be fucking moving to be super aerodynamic and be gliding. So they basically, when no one's at the controls, they often just fucking go into a flat spin, fall, and flip, and all kinds of shit.
The aircraft. Tragically, at 11:28 a.m., contact with the crew was lost, and moments later, the plane crashed to the ground. This means the plane was hit between 10:30 to 10:53 a.m. Kazakh time by the Russian anti-air defense system. In this scenario, the plane is flying at a significantly higher altitude, rendering the cannons ineffective. Consequently, the system
when it starts getting lower and does the go around, they can pick it up.
Deploy a missile as the optimal weapon for engagement. The missile is launched vertically from its sealed canister. It uses its advanced onboard guidance system to navigate with precision towards the designated target. As the missile approaches, its onboard sensors continue to track the civilian aircraft, which in this case is tragically identified as an Azerbaijani civilian aircraft. The missile carries a 25-kilogram high-explosive warhead.
Seems like somebody should have been, I mean, I guess they thought it was a threat or it was an invasion or the Americans were bombing them. It seems like they could have got some ID on this thing and called this motherfucker off and just been a near miss rather than shooting it out of the fucking sky.
Upon reaching the target, the warhead detonates, releasing an intense explosion. The explosion occurs near the side of the aircraft, causing catastrophic damage to its tail section. The resulting shrapnel penetrates the fuselage, inflicting severe internal structural damage. This devastating impact destabilizes the aircraft, leading to
a Learjet explodes just after takeoff, coming down near a mall like a missile with 6 people on board. What happened? The latest information on this episode of Taking Off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken, and the hits keep on coming for the aviation industry. Another fatal accident, this time in Philadelphia.
I like listening to pilots.
Yeah, 6 people on a Learjet.
The channel we were just watching, I like their animations, but they're obviously doing all that with AI.
And 1 person on the ground confirmed dead and 19 injured at the time of this report. What do we know, and why did the aircraft create such a...
Oh, 1 dead person from the ground. I didn't know that. I thought they were just a bunch of wounded, but...
On impact, and why...
I saw a guy on TikTok. There's a video of the guy, like, staggering out of the fire. It's just a couple seconds, dude. But his whole back and shoulder and shit's on fire. And he's staggering. I would assume he probably didn't make it. Those pretty severe burns.
Is the BATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, investigating alongside the NTSB. We also have some information on the operator out of Mexico that we'll get to in a moment. Let's start with what we know. On January 31st, 2025, approximately 6:06 p.m. Eastern, a tragic accident occurred involving a Learjet 55.
Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are investigating it as well?
Air ambulance aircraft operated by Jet Rescue.
Woman in a car.
Registration XAUCI. Call sign was MedJet's Flight 056. Shortly after departing from Northeast...
When I was in high school, when I was a junior, a senior that I had a class with. No, I was a sophomore. I'm sorry. And she was a senior. I was in a weird history class because the history class I needed was full, so I took a more advanced class, and it was with a lot of seniors. And her and another girl that shared the same first name, that were friends that she went to a different school. They were both named Courtney, went to 2 different schools, were sitting at a red light near an old Waffle House in Johnson City, waiting for the light to change. And some idiot in a like a tuner car, I can't remember what it was. It was like a fucking Honda or an Acura or something. And a 50-something-year-old man at like 1 o'clock in the morning were racing. And the 50-something-year-old man was in a Mustang and rear-ended them. Killed the other Courtney, not the one I went to school with, the one that went to a different school. And the Courtney I went to school with had so many fucking severe burns all over. All of her shit was fucking burnt. Ended up having to have a bunch of emergency surgeries, a bunch of skin transplants and shit. She ended up coming back to school. But man, just fucked her up. That guy, Jesus Christ. Over a fucking racing cars on the street and rear-ended the fuck out of them. Never swerved, never nothing. Hit them at over, they were sitting dead still and hit them over at over 120 miles an hour or something like that. It's wild.
Philadelphia Airport, PNE. The aircraft climbed to approximately 1,600 feet before plummeting to the ground near the Roosevelt Mall in Philadelphia within 40 seconds of takeoff. Reports indicate the ADSB data showed the aircraft descending at a rate of over 11,000 feet per minute before crashing near the Roosevelt Mall at the intersection of Cottman Avenue and Roosevelt Boulevard. Air traffic control attempted to make contact with the aircraft several times after handing the aircraft over to departure before stating, "We have a lost aircraft." The jet was transporting a young girl who had received life-saving treatment in the United States. They were going back to Tijuana, Mexico via a fuel stop in Branson, Missouri. She was accompanied by her mother. Also on board were a doctor, a paramedic, the pilot, and the co-pilot, totaling 6 occupants. Tragically, there were no survivors among those on the aircraft. And for background, let's get some details on the Learjet 55, commonly referred to as the Longhorn. Learjet was one of the first private jet manufacturers, and for decades in the 70s and 80s, they became a generalization for rich people travel. All private jets were called Learjets. The 55 was announced at the Paris Air Show in 1977 and could accommodate 10 passengers and 2 pilots. Production of the 55 ended in 1993.
There it is. So remember I was talking about the twin engines, their fuselage mounted just above the rear stabilizer. There you go.
While it was amazing in the 80s, today they're one of the cheaper used jets that you can purchase. This particular...
That's why they end up becoming ambulances and nonprofits and shit like that. It's still expensive to maintain. I don't want to make it sound like it's like a fucking busted-ass car that overheats or whatever. Still expensive.
Jet 55 was made in 1982, so it was almost 45 years old. MedJet's 056 was departing Northeast Philadelphia Airport runway 24. According to the National Weather Service, winds were from the southwest at 10 knots. On the audio, the tower informs the Learjet winds were 250 at 10 knots at the time of takeoff. There were 6 miles of visibility, fog, and mist. Overcast at 400 feet. That's a really low ceiling. Temperature was 48 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity was 100%. And here's the tower communication for takeoff.
Medevac, Med-Service 056, on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010. Medevac Med-Service 056, affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff. Medevac Med-Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
Medevac Med-Service 056, Northeast Tower, contact Philly 123.8. Medevac Med-Service, Northeast Tower. Medevac Med-Service 056, North.
So what's happening here is they should have handed off from like the airport to the air traffic controller, like in transit, right? The airspace. They didn't. So now he's trying to contact him a bunch and saying, "Hey, contact Philly. Are you still on this frequency?" They should have changed frequencies and already contacted We call them airspace controllers, but I don't know what they call them.
Northeast Tower, you on frequency?
40 seconds after takeoff, the Learjet was seen by multiple cameras impacting the ground at a high rate of speed.
Stupid high rate of speed. That looks like a fucking asteroid, dude.
The crash resulted in a massive explosion, igniting fires that affected nearby homes and businesses and cars, and causing injuries to over a dozen people on the ground. Witnesses described the explosion as shrapnel ripping into cars. Local officials are requesting anyone to not touch any of the debris they find and instead call authorities. The FAA and NTSB are investigating the accident. Video footage of the accident quickly spread throughout social media, with many asking,
I know this whole fucking show has basically been about airplanes and shit, but I find it interesting, and it's in the news right now, so this is what we got.
what is going on due to the recent accident in Washington?
I don't know. I don't know if that's its engine flaming out. I don't know. It's marker that the videos are such low quality.
D.C. that we previously covered here on Taking Off. Looking at
it's definitely like a streak. If an engine's flaming out or they're trying to restart engine or something.
Crash. It's amazing that only one person died on the ground. They are reporting another 19 injured. 6 houses, 6 cars caught on fire. And when you look at this angle, it appears something comes off the plane right here. Now let's take another look, frame by frame, backing it up. Right here, something coming off the plane. And I'm sure investigators will be looking at that.
Maybe.
One interesting piece of news. Of course, the NTSB is investigating.
But that could just be it's doing way too fast for its airframe. It's ripping shit off.
But it's also being reported that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are also on site investigating along with the NTSB. I would attribute the large fireball to an airplane that was fully loaded with jet fuel since it had just started the trip. But maybe the ATF has other information? Well, we'll monitor that. The large fireball to an airplane that was fully loaded.
I guess they could just be overly cautious. Was there an explosive there? Maybe that's why they're there. ATF, they handle explosives. It was such a large fireball. Was there explosion on the plane? Did something blow up on the plane? I wouldn't imagine the little girl and her family are blowing shit up. I guess one of the pilots or the staff could be something radicalized and trying to blow up a plane. I don't know.
Tobacco and Firearms are also on site investigating along with the NTSB. I would attribute the large fireball to an airplane that was fully loaded with jet fuel since it had just started the trip. But maybe the ATF has other information? Well, we'll monitor that. We feel it here. Our hearts are heavy. So many lives taken too soon and due to accidents in aviation. So, doing research on the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance Company, a 2018 news article interview with the CEO reported their headquarters as Mexico City and that they started flying patients in 1994. Jet Rescue is the marketing brand for the operator certificate holder MedJets. As of 2018, their fleet included 10 Learjets. There were
we were talking about oxygen tanks earlier.
2 25Ds, 5 35 models, 2 of the 55s, and a 60. And to be able to operate in the U.S., they do have to fulfill FAA requirements under the Part 135 rules, which covers things like maintenance, training, and operations. And I'm sure investigators will be looking at the maintenance logs and training closely. And this is not the first accident Jet Rescue Air Ambulance has had. On November 1st, 2023, the same company operating a Learjet 35A crashed in southern Mexico as it landed at Cuernavaca Airport in Morelos, Mexico, about 30 miles south of Mexico City.
We don't hear a lot, unless they're all happening at the same time, we don't hear a lot about smaller aircraft crashing all over the world.
On board that aircraft were 5 crew members. No passengers were on board, although early reports had listed 4 people. There were 5, unfortunately.
They saved her life, and I lived outside. Oh shit! I'm glad they were able to rescue my mom. My dad flew on a helicopter medevac. Actually, 3 times, which is crazy. The first time he had a heart attack and was on it, I flew with him. And the guy told him, he's like, this is the first, he's asking my dad. My dad's still like talking or whatever. He's like, the first time you've ever flown on a helicopter? And the guy said, and dad said, yeah. And he said, good, because I can count on one hand anybody who's ever flown on my helicopter twice. It's not something you want to do multiple times, just because, I guess, of the urgency of it. But Dad actually ended up being med lifted 3 times.
Fortunately, there were no survivors of this accident. The jet landed long on the 9,500-foot runway 20. It overran it and continued down a steep embankment before bursting into flames. Weather was good, winds were light. I have been unable to find a final report on this crash from any of the Mexican authorities. People are asking what caused this Learjet to crash right after takeoff, especially at that speed and with that kind of explosion. And the short answer is we don't know, and we're not going to guess.
What's it like in Philly? You seen any ice or any stuff going on like that around there? I know a lot of the big cities have been reporting roundups and protests and...
Investigators will be looking at everything, all the videos frame by frame, piecing together what clues they can from the wreckage. They'll look at the operator's maintenance logs in case it was a mechanical issue. They'll look at pilot training and ATC recordings. The important thing is to determine what caused this so that we can prevent it from happening again, no matter what the cause was. It's been a rough week in aviation. Please stay safe out there, and please support us by visiting our sponsors in the links in the description below. Also, here's our video that we did 10 months ago about DEI in ATC and aviation. And is it right or wrong? Check it out. Remember, superior judgment trumps superior skills. Take care.
Damn. Let's here you go. Throw some politics in at the end.
I'm officially demanding that we deport Elon Musk
I've seen nothing, but I'm about an hour south in southern New Jersey. Oh, okay.
from the United States. Get him out of here, because he is a national security threat who has proven time and time again that his allegiance is not to America.
Dude, let me ask you a question. What would the right wing be doing if George Soros was taking a band of his guys around to the fucking Treasury and to USAID and places like that and plugging in USBs, trying to sneak into SCIFs, trying to read documents he didn't have fucking clearance for, firing people who wouldn't let him read these documents that he didn't have clearance for? What the fuck would they be doing? Insurrection number 2?
It's not to the American people. His loyalty is to himself, to his companies, and maybe to countries that can help his companies and help himself, like China. And I can demonstrate that throughout this video. Elon Musk does not care about you. He is the richest man in the world, and his net worth has doubled since Donald Trump was elected because he conned the American people. He is getting wealthy off the backs of the American people that he promised to help, and therefore he should be deported. I can make the strong argument.
Can you cancel grants? He's even joking about it. He's like, oh, well, all you have to do is just show up on the weekend. There's nobody here. Like, I could do anything I wanted.
Argument as to why. So make sure you drop a like, subscribe.
He's going through systems that have like your social security number and your address, your date of birth, and shit that he doesn't have a need to know, and he doesn't have clearance to access these systems. But for anybody that tells him no, they're just firing them, locking them out.
To help boost this video if you're ready to bring some fire to Republicans. And before we even jump into some of these breaking news stories that are quite terrifying, I just want to show you some of Elon Musk's vile behavior. Somebody posted a meme on Twitter of a woman who had her mugshot taken by ICE, and there's clearly some beauty filters on this, right? And then below it, it's a fake meme of Donald Trump signing an executive order saying 9s and above are not illegal, implying that if you're a 9 out of 10 on the beauty scale or whatever, that you shouldn't be deported. So you guys see the meme here. Elon Musk decides to respond with a laughy face and an emoji with the 100. This dude is making jokes.
God, he tries so hard to be cool. He tries so hard to be cool.
About the mass deportations while they're happening, even though he's the one that ushered in this new era with his vast amount of wealth and his buying of Twitter. Again, Elon Musk should be deported from the United States. But moving on from that, I can get angry about this all day, but we need to break down the actual consequences of what Elon Musk's doing, because not a lot of people are talking about this, and they really should be. Elizabeth Warren, for example, said no one elected Elon Musk. As Donald Trump allows Musk to access people's personal information and shut down government funding, Republicans in Washington will also...
I mean, that's their claim about George Soros, is George Soros has too much money, he funds all the Democrats, he does this. But that's literally what Elon Musk did, and they're cheering him on. Is it just because it's their side, or... Alex Jones has talked about George Soros for 30 goddamn years. We'll hear him say shit about Musk doing anything. It's crazy.
So own the consequences. We must do everything in our power to push back, protect people from harm, and deport Elon Musk. Okay, she didn't say that, but those are my words. Elizabeth Warren didn't say the deportation part. But right here, the Alt National Park Service posted a few days ago.
Elon Musk's staff has been caught plugging in hard drives inside the Office of Personnel Management, the Treasury Department, and the General Services Administration, GSA. His staff encountered resistance when demanding that Treasury officials grant access to systems managing the flow of more than $6 trillion annually to programs like Social Security and Medicare. Tensions escalated when Musk aides were discovered at OPM accessing systems, including vast databases known as the Enterprise Human Resource Integration. Well, I'll let him read the rest.
Musk's staff has been caught plugging in hard drives inside the Office of Personnel Management, the Treasury Department, and the General Services Administration. His staff...
I don't care if this was somebody, if this was fucking 100, it doesn't matter. Nobody should be doing this. What are they fucking doing?
encountered resistance when demanding that Treasury officials grant access to systems managing the flow of more than $6 trillion annually to programs like Social Security and Medicare. Now listen to this. Tensions then escalated when Musk's aides were discovered at OPM accessing systems, including a vast database known as the Enterprise Human Resources Integration, which contains sensitive info such as Social Security numbers, dates of birth, performance appraisals, home addresses, the length of service for employees. In response to employees speaking out, Musk's aides locked civil servants out of computer systems and offices with reports of
So when people raise the question, like, are you supposed to be in that? Hey, you don't have clearance. This is need to know. This is personal data. They just locked them out.
Personal items being searched. But it gets even worse than that. After he did that, we now have a breaking news report from
Musk makes all his money from the government. All he's finding is more money that they can funnel to him. He's subsidized through the roof. He's worried about people getting Medicare, Medicaid, immigrants getting whatever, food stamps, but he's literally a welfare queen. He is literally a welfare queen. All his companies run off of it.
From today, that USAID security leaders are on leave after trying to keep Musk's Doge from classified info. Again, we have multiple credible sources saying that Elon Musk was trying to access personal info even further, and now people are on leave because of it. Let me just break this down. The Trump administration has placed 2 top security chiefs.
Is he an illegal? No, he's a South African, but he's a U.S. citizen.
At the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, on leave.
But like SpaceX and Tesla just get shit tons of money from the government. So it's kind of hard to be biased when the government's paying you billions of fucking dollars in your private company and you're supposed to be the guy cutting the budget.
After they refused to turn over classified material in restricted areas to Elon Musk's government inspection teams, a current and former U.S. official told the Associated Press on Sunday. I don't mean to sound like a broken record with the George Soros comparison, but do you know how much they whined and cried and pissed themselves and puked all over talking about George Soros? Their heads were about to explode. Now Elon Musk is about to cause a national security crisis. He's about to strip away some of people's benefits that help them on a day-to-day basis, and Republicans...
Right here at the bottom, it says Musk's Doge crew lacked high enough security clearance to access that information, so the 2 USAID security officials, John Voorhees and Deputy Brian McGill, were legally obligated to deny him access, right? He doesn't have the security clearance.
Republicans are just quiet.
If they hadn't tried to deny him access, they would be in trouble, right? Security is everybody's problem. See something, say something kind of deal.
They're completely quiet. Members of Musk's Doge eventually did gain access Saturday, to the aid agency's classified information, which includes intelligence reports, the former official said.
This is illegal just there, and attempting to, especially... even if you do get access to classified information, is illegal if you don't have the clearance for it.
Doge crew lacked high enough security.
They even said he tried to get in a fucking skiff. You can be shot for that, killed for that.
Clearance to access that information, and so he fleeced the top security officials.
They carried out a similar operation in the Treasury Department, gaining access to sensitive information, including the Social Security and Medicare customer payment systems. Musk formed Doge in cooperation with the new Trump administration with the stated goal of finding ways to fire federal workers, cut programs, / federal regulations.
From the place, he is the definition of an unelected bureaucrat. Elon Musk, Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy have spent so long talking about these unelected bureaucurs, meaning people who are not elected.
Right, the FAA, you mean? But yeah, he made the head of the FAA quit because his rockets they wanted an investigation after it blew up over a goddamn city center, and that's how he got him fucking fired.
Americans, people who have power despite not being elected, and then people who use that power
the same way they told everybody they better vote the way Trump does or they'll be fired.
To make themselves wealthy, to pull the strings, and to actively harm American people. They think George Soros is this type of person. Has he been in the White House over the past 4 years when Biden was president? Has he been in the White House once? I don't believe so. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has access to go there whenever. He's able to basically fire people with his own will, and Musk formed Doge in cooperation.
George Soros is just a guy that donates money to the Democrats.
With the new Trump administration. And listen to this. This purge came in.
They've made him like the devil or something. I don't know.
After Doge carried out a similar operation in the Treasury Department. They are going from agency to agency to department, and essentially gaining access to sensitive information, purging the people who have been there for a while and replacing them with pure Trump loyalists. And now Elon Musk is trying to say the USAID was...
One of the guys that they hired and put in charge of something literally just graduated high school. I don't think he's old enough to drink yet.
A viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hates America. The play here is so obvious. What Elon Musk does is he goes in, he purges an institution, then he tries to act like that institution is a radical left Marxist-filled institution when it's quite the opposite. It's full of one of the most radical right people ever. This dude is endorsing Germany's far, far, far right party, and he's trying to say radical left Marxists hate America. This dude hates
These are the people who do civilian foreign aid and development. Right? United States Agency for International Development, USAID. They're the people that work with foreigners, civilians, getting them water, food, vaccines, whatever, right? And infrastructure. That's what they do. And they've been around since the 60s, since the first Foreign Assistance Act or whatever they call it.
America, and what did I say? I demand that he be deported. We're not going to stop working until Elon Musk is deported out of this country. Sock Done Left said, conservatives live in a parallel world where every U.S. empire-building institution, like the FBI, the CIA, USAID, or whatever else, is actually controlled by Marxists. It's genuinely insane. Conservatism is a mental disorder, and it's a mental disorder that comes from the top down. When the actual leader of the country is borderline mentally ill with narcissistic personality disorder, and he's a pathological liar, then the people below him begin to model that illness, that mental illness. Somebody on the federal news Reddit, these are all federal workers, hundreds of thousands of federal workers have come together to build a community on Reddit, said,
and they're still working, even though Donald Trump froze all foreign aid. They later rolled it back. Marco Rubio later rolled it back and let humanitarian aid go through. So they're still working there. I don't know what the fuck Elon's doing.
Elon is breaking the law with his OPM server and access to the treasury. Can he just be...
They do stuff like disaster relief, like if you hear earthquake, tsunami, whatever in the world, they do that. They do poverty relief. So like the poorest places in the world where literally like people are dying because they can't get food and water, they help there. They do like global initiatives, U.S. interests, like if we want to build somebody up because they're one of our trading partners or whatever. It's all socioeconomic shit. Now, there have been a bunch of claims that, like, the CIA uses this to get information on this guy, that, like, if we're helping these people, but they're also under a dictator, the CIA uses that to, like, gather information. They use the CIA uses everything, right? They might be in with the army in Iraq and then in with fucking Doctors Without Borders in China. That's what they do. They're spies.
Someone said, I'm worried about him shutting down IT systems. He's already illegally revoking credentials, illegally revoking access. He should be arrested and deported. Those are my words. He should be deported. But let's face it. We know why he is.
Their plan might be to fucking break the system and then say we're the only people that can fix it and build back what they want.
The U.S. does not tend to arrest billionaires. If anyone else would try to pull this, they would be behind bars immediately. Now, to make it even more disgusting before we move on to the final piece of breaking news, Elon Musk posted earlier.
This is disgusting as fuck. He's showing a picture down here of the crash in the helicopter and saying DEI means people die. The bodies aren't even cold yet, dude.
DEI means people die. He probably thought that sounded great, but he's saying that in response to the DC plane crash, which had nothing to do with DEI. Nothing whatsoever. It's an incredibly disgusting twist. And you guys see how this builds on what I was saying earlier, right? Elon Musk begins to undermine...
You can't even spell his name, but you think that Q wants him gone? Please, as respectfully as possible, shut the fuck up. You can't even spell his fucking name, but you think you know that he's a pedophile? Shut the fuck up.
Institution. Trump does the same thing. He'll undermine the Justice Department, and then he uses his own lies as a justification as to why that department needs to be nuked, essentially. You can even look at FEMA. How many times...
I will ban you tonight for saying stupid shit. I'm at the end of my stupid shit road.
That Trump and Republicans spread lies about FEMA during the last natural disaster in North Carolina and Florida and etc. Now they are using those lies to justify FEMA being removed. And just to remind you,
you have zero evidence of any fucking claim.
Says top
Q says is not fucking evidence. You always say the most goddamn retarded shit.
Republican overseeing the FAA, yet Elon Musk is the one who has all this cultural pull because he owns X. He's able to use X to boost his own.
You've spelled corpse 6 times, by the way. Corpse. That's that word that you're spelling for his last name. Corpse.
Lies, and then he's able to use those lies to justify tearing down the institutions that have helped America build an empire across the globe. It is incredibly, incredibly disturbing. And what's even more disturbing is Musk vowing to cancel grants after gaining access to the U.S. Treasury payment system. The system disperses trillions of dollars in U.S. government spending each year, including Social Security. Listen to this. Elon Musk has vowed to unilaterally cancel hundreds of millions of dollars worth of government grants after apparently gaining access to review the U.S. Treasury's vast payment system, a move that prompted the sudden resignation of one of the department's most senior officials. They are purging the qualified career politicians that have been helping the U.S. build up our presence on the world stage for decades and replacing them with young dudes who don't know what they're doing. And
a random letter on the internet told me that Elon Musk not only kills kids, but then he fucks their corpse. He's a necropedo. And L wants him gone. Evil, evil man. See how fucking retarded that is?
And replacing them with Elon Musk. And just to go back to the USAID, because I want to touch on that for just 1 second, it is a crucial arm of the American foreign policy that has allowed us to be so successful. Essentially, it administers civilian foreign aid and development assistance. It promotes economic growth in countries that will benefit us. It promotes democracy, global health initiatives, which also help protect Americans, and humanitarian aid. So it's not just about charity. The USAID, you call it USAID, it's a strategic tool for advancing U.S. interests abroad and fostering the type of global security that Trump is trying to strip away. And according to the reports that I was talking about earlier, the Trump administration placed 2 top USAID security officials on leave completely. And the reason is they refuse to turn over classified material to Musk's Doge.
But that's there. They have to. They have to. If I have classified documents and I know you do not have clearance to see them, or I have access to them, or I see you getting access to them, and I know you do not have clearance to see them, I have to do whatever I can to stop you from getting access to those documents, to report it, to tell you you're not allowed, you don't have the clearance, to not let you use my clearance, to not log you in, to not just sit idly by and do that. They're required to.
Incredibly disturbing. But going back to this story about the Treasury, there are so many things going on at once. The world's richest man.
Don't say retarded shit then. You have zero proof. You can't make claims about people like this without fucking proof. I swear to God, if you say something that stupid again, I will mount a campaign and spend every fucking dollar I have and my last fucking breath trying to convince the entire world that you're a fucking pedophile. I'll use AI images. I'll pay off fucking witnesses. I will spend the rest of my life trying to convince the world that you're a pedophile because Jay told me. That's so goddamn stupid. Don't say, you have no proof.
Who bankrolled Donald Trump's re-election campaign, was tasked by the president with running the cost-cutting Department of Government Efficiency, boasted on his social media site X that he was, quote, rapidly shutting down illegal payments after a list of grants to Lutheran organizations were posted online. The same thing with the Treasury applies to what I was saying earlier. Elon Musk spreads a lie about a department, about an agency, about a certain institution, then
too many goddamn retards on the internet have gotten way too, and it's not you, it's a fucking millions of people, have gotten way too fucking comfortable throwing out accusations about motherfuckers with zero evidence. Because some guy I watch or used to watch or some anonymous person said so. Holy fuck. It wasn't even, I heard that. It's just, he's a fucking pedophile and this one's a fucking rapist and this one stole money. Is so goddamn retarded. Phil knows. Phil's your source. You got it.
He uses his lies as a justification for removing that agency, or at least purging the agency. The threat comes after Musk appeared to confirm on Saturday that Doge had access to the Treasury system, which disperses trillions of dollars each year, including Social Security payments. He justified the move by claiming his team discovered, quote, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed to always approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. He didn't provide any evidence, and this is not true. But it then says the system has been run by...
It's kind of weird that Q never called out any of these thousands of pedophiles we've actually seen busted over the last fucking 8 years. Seems like he could have called some of them.
Career civil servants and the Treasury.
Oh, just the people who don't have the same beliefs as Donald Trump and the right wing? That's weird.
Already has an in-house team tasked with identifying fraudulent payments. A source with knowledge of the situation said that Doge representatives did not have the authority to cut the payments, only to read the data, but Elon Musk's hostile takeover will probably lead to them having access to it all, doing whatever they want. Senator Ron Wyden, the top-ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, said his office...
And he's probably not a great guy. He's a fucking multi-billionaire. Right, he's probably done some fucked up shit, but there's no evidence whatsoever that he's a pedophile.
Has been told that the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has granted Doge full access to the system. Quote, Social Security and Medicare benefits, grants, payments to government contractors, including those that compete directly with Musk's own companies, all of it. He has written to Bessent demanding answers on Musk's access, saying, quote, I can think of no good reason why political operators who have demonstrated a blatant disregard for the law would need to access these sensitive, mission-critical systems. It's all incredibly disturbing, and just to back up, number one, we need to deport Elon Musk. Elon Musk needs to
Inspector General.
Be deported. He is a bigger threat to our country than any illegal immigrant that has been deported over the past week. But also, if you just look at Elon's pattern of behavior, from his ties to authoritarian regimes to his reckless interference in U.S. government operations, he is a clear and present danger to everybody living in the United States because his alliances are driven by profit, are driven by power, not driven by the interests of the American people. And a lot of people will say, oh, all politicians are driven by their own self-interest. That's not true. Obama worked his ass off to pass the Affordable Care Act. Biden worked his ass off to pass all of this legislation, even if he was a little bit sleepy over the past year of his presidency. I will take sleepiness business over a traitor every single day, over somebody who puts the interests of the American people to the side and just allows himself unfettered access to our most sensitive documents and institutions so that he can benefit himself. And we're not just compromising our economy through tariffs. That's to the side. We're not just compromising the American people's safety on a day-to-day basis. We're compromising our national security as a whole. So it's time to take this threat seriously, because Elon Musk has repeatedly proven that he cannot be trusted with the responsibilities and privileges that come with operating in the United States. And I'll leave it at that. Deportation is the only logical step for the security of our nation. And if you agree, subscribe, drop a like, become a member below. Have a great rest of your day. I love all of you guys, and peace out.
There you go. Yeah, fucking Elon Musk takes a horse tranquilizer to get right. Jesus Christ. These are the people that are in charge. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for the support. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I'm going to hop off here for tonight. Ollie had a good birthday today. We did the flashcard thing. I don't know if you've ever seen it on social media where like 2 things are written on a flashcard. We actually tricked him on the first one, and he gets to pick. So he got to pick where he wanted to shop, where he wanted to go, and where he wanted to eat. He had a good time. So got his birthday celebrated, even though his birthday was on Saturday. We celebrated on Sunday. So he had a good time. Gilligan's still alive and kicking. He might even be doing a little bit better. I'm not sure, but still keep an eye on that. I got a big appointment this week. I got 2 big appointments this week, so I'll probably be like out of sorts. There's just a lot of stress and shit going on. A lot of shit not going my way right now. So thank you guys for joining us, though. Thanks for hanging out with me. This always makes me feel a little bit better. I'll try to get straightened back out. Thank you all. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you on the next one.
But I can tell you this about if this douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet.
I gotta meet the lawyer and a doctor. I gotta figure some stuff out financially.
You know that stage is set.
I got a bunch of stuff going on right now,
Seen nothing yet.
and I don't want to do none of it.
Well, listen, bitch, I came
Be honest with you.
wit in a 6 cents for the stupid shit. Where my true believer?
Have a good one, guys.
Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like fool in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your Huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat rockets. I strapped them to my shoes and then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine.
Have a good one.
Between